Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Boy, we got a lot to cover today. Let's get started. Today is March 24th, 2023, a Friday. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, I'm glad to have you guys here. Tin pot dictators. That's what I'll call them. That's what I'll call them, tin pot dictators. Anyway, looking over to North Korea. You've got a dictatorship in North Korea. It's the perfect example of a dictatorship, you know? Uh, Out in the rural areas and stuff, the food that they grow, they use human waste to grow it, and it's all covered with parasites and everything. And half of the a lot of the North Korean people are infected with human parasitic things in their gastrointestinal system and everything else because they have to eat that food. But I'm going to tell you what, the leadership in North Korea doesn't eat that stuff. They only eat the best. But that's just a small example of the torturous amount of basically, it's like all the people in North Korea are locked in chains. They got no life. Not at all. Now, over here in the West, who shall remain nameless, we have a number of leaders over here in the West who are trying to become, I'll call them tin pot dictators. That's my name for them. But they're trying to become like the leader of North Korea. They're trying to make decisions that'll affect the citizens of their countries in a negative way, and they make these decisions all on their own overnight in an arbitrary fashion. Simple as that. Right? And so the people are protesting. Well, you know why people protest? Let me tell you why. Because the people in North Korea are like, they're kind of like a child that's had cancer from a very early age. He accepts his illness. And that's the way with them. They accept their illness because they've never known anything better. They've grown up that way. So they accept it that the leader is going to trample on them, is going to hold his foot on their neck. They're used to it, in other words. But over here in the Western countries, we've had a certain amount of democracy, and we've had a certain amount of freedom over the years, and we've had good times. We've had a 40-year credit expansion where we've expanded the monetary supply for 40 years or more. You know? Falling bond prices. Going all the way back into the 1980s, into the Paul Volcker era. And these falling bond prices have made cheap, easy money. We've had zero interest rate policy from 2008 forward. Zero interest rates. You borrow money for almost for nothing. It's made a lot of people rich. The people out there who have had the savvy within the system to work with other people's money rather than, in other words, they use debt to become rich. They are into the money pool. They're able to borrow money for zero interest rate policy. In other words, no, they don't have to pay any interest back on the money, and they can borrow as much as they want. And they've made a lot of people rich, richer than rich. But this is why, though, they're not going to accept the tin pot dictator. You know, and I'm going to remain nameless. I'm not going to specifically name the tin pot dictators around the world, but there's a number of them who are wannabes. They want to be Kim Jong-un, but they're not. And the people are not going to accept that. It's basically the way it is. No inference to the article behind me. I'm just saying. You know, and the thing is I'm not naming any names either of who these tin pot dictators are. But there's a number of them out there. I'm not going to single any one of them out. They want to do things like they want to feed you bugs and have you so that you can't go anywhere or do anything without, it's just sick. But, like I say, because we've known something better, all over here in the West, the people have known something better. We've known democracy. We've known a certain amount of freedom. We've had it so that for years, especially in America, You know, it was unheard of for the leadership to pull this kind of stuff. They just didn't do it. But now they're trying it on. They're trying it on in different Western countries. And part of it's because of the situation. I'm not gonna make any excuses for them. But this is as the people get squeezed tighter and tighter, as finances get constrained. We're not dealing with the people that we had in the 1930s. And they rioted and stuff, the people in the 1930s, but we're not dealing with that generation. They were a generation that had a lot of morality back in the 1930s when the Great Depression hit. They were very moral people. They had a lot of service to community was big with them, and they were willing to listen, and like the people like that aren't that way today. Today they're degenerates. You know, that's what we're dealing with. But they're degenerates that have had a silver spoon in their mouth. They've had everything for years and years and years. And believe me, they will burn everything to the ground. I mean, have you ever seen a spoiled child in a store? You know, pulling things off of the aisles and throwing them on the ground, and the mother's there, and they're having a temper tantrum, and the mother's like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And the child is wrecking the whole store. I've seen videos like on TikTok of this, you know? But but we're not talking about one single person. And, you know, they can do a lot of damage, a kid can, to a store if they're just completely out of control. Even though they're like 8, 10 years old, you know? They're just tearing things down, glasses breaking, and especially in some place like a drugstore or something, you know? Anyway, but what we're talking about is millions and millions of people who, when they get riled, they'll burn her down, tear her to pieces, rip everything to shreds. And I mean, what are they doing in France right now? Let's talk about France. Well, they're not doing much yet. I mean, setting a few cars on fire and lighting a few dumpsters on fire is not that big a deal, really. I mean, they think it's a big deal. They think, oh, wow, Paris is burning, blah, blah, blah. But no, 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 no. No, no, no. What I'm talking about is on a different level. And this might go away. You know? This little thing. But the pressure that's causing this is not going away. And it's just like the banking crisis. And I'll get to that in a minute. But the pressure that's causing this to happen. And this is what I've been talking about when I say human stampede. You ain't seen nothing yet, because the pressure's getting greater by the day for this to happen. It's like a pressure cooker right now, because the people out there that have had the 40 years of credit cycle and the binged on credit and the feeling good and happy, and now it's all coming to an end, and they feel like their leaders are taking everything away from them. They're taking their money away from them. They're taking their freedom away from them. They're taking everything away from them. And they're a generation of people out, generations, I should say, because there's all these different generations. There's like the boomers and what do they call them? They have the different names for them. I can't keep up with it all, you know. But they range in age classes. But they're the people. And they're on the edge right now. They're just like France was before the French Revolution. But they're being squeezed tighter. And what's going to happen is a no-brainer. To me, it's a no-brainer what's going to happen. Especially when we start to hit these things like banking crises and financial turmoil that's coming. And yeah, that's the name of my channel, Financial Turmoil Explained. I'm trying to explain it to you guys right now. That we're finally hitting the financial turmoil. It's begun. It begun when Silicon Valley Bank fell. And we entered into the deflationary spike event that I've been talking about for years. That's when we entered into the financial turmoil that I need to explain to you guys. And what I'm explaining to you is the next shoe to drop. The next shoe to drop is what I've been just explaining to you. And I call it the human stampede. And just like a bunch of cattle, you know, when they stampede, something sets them off. Maybe it's a bit of thunder in a cloud over there or something. Well, we can see what's going to set the human stampede off here is fear. All the nations in the West, and even over in places like Russia and China, everybody around the world right now is frightened. And if you think this is something, with France burning and everything, you ain't seen nothing compared to what the people can do. When they storm the Bastille, I mean, that's when it starts to get to be something. This is nothing compared to what they can do. Okay. No reason to worry, says Schultz. As Deutsche Bank bloodbath reignites global bank crisis fears. I guess Deutsche Bank lost like 12% or something. It's just powy, you know. Everything's just coming apart at the seams. Deutsche Bank's one of these banks that's way too big to fail. It's one of the biggest. They got one of the biggest derivatives books on earth. They would completely destroy the system all by themselves, Deutsche Bank, if they go down. I've been talking about it for years. Says no reason to worry. Deutsche Bank is very profitable. Yeah. Well, the people, you know, they're hauling their money out of other banks and putting it into Deutsche Bank. And now they're doing the same thing in America. They're hauling their money out of the smaller regional banks, and they're putting it into the J.P. Morgans and the Banks of America and everything else. So money's dashing about. It's running from the frying pan into the fire. When are they going to realize that the really safe place to put your money is in physical precious metals? By the time they realize that, it's going to be all gone. They ain't going to be able to buy any. And I've been telling you guys this. We're on the verge right now. I took a look at my local called coin store or silver dealer or gold dealer, silver and gold dealer or whatever. They got an online internet site that I can go to very simply just by typing it in, right? And I've been watching them for years, seeing how much metal they have. They're practically sold out now. Everything is on waiting list. You got to wait. It says coming soon on every item practically. I've never seen that before, ever. They always have lots. It's everything, all the way down the list. The only thing they had a 10-ounce gold bar. They still have a couple of them. It says, I think it said on those, limited quantities left. But they're like $30,000 or $27,000 or something in Canadian money. I mean, that's like, that's why they had a few left, because most people can't afford that any longer. Because, I mean, in a rich, luxurious system like we should have, because America's hard workers, and we are very industrious, and we are very smart, and we should have a very rich middle class. We should all be able to afford several of those bars easily. But we've got these ticks that have been sucking on us, sucking our life juices away, and now over 50% of Americans can't afford $1,000. Why? The richest country on earth is because we got these ticks sucking on our ass. We gotta, I mean, if there's places you can go in the woods, you know, and you just be covered and littered with them. The ticks, they'll suck you dry. They suck blood, by the way. You know, I mean, most of you guys know what ticks are. But believe me, when I call these bankers and the ultra rich people, the one percenters and the world leaders and all of them lumped in together, they're like a big bunch of ticks. Anyway, so here we go. We got Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is having troubles right now. Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury Yellen, they're convening an emergency financial stability meeting. Now, see, that's all these people do. You know why they do so many meetings? So they can huddle around and they can look at ways they can mess us up. So they can take what belongs to the people for themselves. But right now, this is an emergency meeting, a financial stability meeting. As the banking crisis explodes, you guys should be worried. Really. Honest to God, the system is on the verge. That's why they're having these emergency meetings. The system's on the verge of freezing right now. It could freeze at any time. You could wake up Monday morning and you might as well stay home. Forget going to work. You wake up Monday morning and your credit card doesn't work. Your debit card doesn't work. All the banks are closed. The stores will probably be mostly closed, and the few that are open will say, we only take cash. Gas stations will go dry. Everything will just seize up in the system. And you'll have no word on when they're going to be able to get it running again, because the whole thing is just like massive amounts of what we call liquidity in the system becomes constrained, and then at a certain point, the deflationary process creates a, how would I call it? A jumble. I'll call it a jumble of transactions going back and forth across the internet at the speed of light. I'll call it a jumble of like, one bank goes down, and what happens is it sends a signal through these wires to other banks that they're broke too, and then they go down, and that in turn sends signals to other banks that they're broke too, and the whole thing locks up because there's just so many transactions going back and forth across the internet telling them that they're in free fall, that they have to seize the whole thing up, and then they don't know who owns what. And try sorting it out. And that's what emergency meetings are all about, because it's an emergency financial stability meeting. It means that the system is unstable right now, and you guys should be frightened. What can I tell you guys? I'm explaining financial turmoil to you guys right now, and this is it. We're in the financial turmoil. So what comes next? What comes next is what's called the Great Print. Because no matter what they talk, no matter how their lips move, don't pay attention to the way their lips are moving. They're going to bail everything out. Because this scares them to the bone. If the system freezes, they are going to pee their pants. I'm talking about the leaders out there, the Fed chief and the Treasury Secretary, and all of them are going to pee their pants if the system locks up. Because they know that they get their cushy lifestyle from the system, and if the system's gone, they have nothing. And so they will do anything, and I mean anything, to restore that system back, to make it function again. And the longer it's out, the more desperate they're going to get. And this is what's coming. A system freeze. And it's going to scare them to death. And they will print. Then the Great Print begins. And then the hyperinflation hits. And we're just months away from it. And if you haven't got something to protect you through this hyperinflation, and this is what's going to trigger what I talked about in the first start of my show. You ain't seen nothing yet. The hyperinflation is going to trigger this because it's going to squeeze the people out there. They're not going to have a pot to urinate in. I almost said the other word, you know. But that's the way it's going to happen, and then they're just going to, because they've had all the way through their lives, they've had everything that they want. Oh, we want lobster tonight. Okay, let's all go out for lobster. That's the way it's been. But when it comes right down to it, and they're hungry, and they haven't got 2 pennies to rub together because of what the Fed's doing, and they can't eat tonight, well, you know, I mean, then they're gonna go and they're gonna grab they're gonna grab the club or whatever and head out into the street. Mark my words, that's what they'll do. And hunger's what triggers it. And they've known this all along, but there's no way they're going to be able to avoid this situation. And this is what's coming. And if you think it's hairy in France, you haven't seen nothing to how hairy it can get everywhere. Oh my gosh. Silver price today, you know, silver is up 9 cents at 23.18. You know, I don't know how they're keeping this down. You guys say, well, it's went up, Glenn. Like I say, you haven't seen nothing yet. I don't know how they're with all the silver being just about sold out, and it's needed for industry and stuff, how they're keeping it. You know, this stuff was like $50 way back when money was money. And $23? Are you kidding me? Practically giving it away. Considering what the dollar's worth now, I don't think it's ever been cheaper. When silver was $3, it was more expensive than it is now, considering what your dollar can buy. 1988 on gold, it's down 550. Taking a look at cryptocurrency today. We're looking at a Bitcoin price of 28,018 and Ethereum price of 1766. The Dow Jones, she is at, I'm refreshing the page right now. Okay, 32,071. It's down 33 points on the day so far. My internet's running slow for some reason. There it is. Crude oil, 68.38. It's down $1.58 on the day. Now, bonds and rates today. We're looking at falling yields. Why? Well, look, why are they running into these bonds? You know, I mean, that's again like hauling out. They're going to figure it out after a while that silver and gold's where they really want to be. They will figure it out. But they're going to run first from one thing to another. Now, right now, they run into bonds, but they'll be running out of bonds because, look, bonds are only as good as talk about counterparty. Take a look at the people who had bonds in Swiss Bank, Credit Suisse. You know, they had bonds, and those bonds are, Credit Suisse said, okay, these bonds are as good as gold. Good as gold. And then overnight they say, oh, they're worthless. Or whatever, they're not worth anything. They can do the same thing with this stuff. They say, oh, the U.S. Treasury bonds as good as gold. They're good, blah, 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 blah. You know? But we've all seen how arbitrary they are. They can make you take a haircut on this stuff, or they could even potentially say they're worthless. And because they really are worthless. When you hold a real piece of gold in your hand, solid physical metal in your hand, that'll never be worthless. And it has no counterparty risk. You know, you guys have to understand counterparty risk. It's because you're relying upon somebody else, not yourself. You know, I mean, there are people out there who don't have any arms and don't have any legs, you know, and they have to rely upon other people. And it's hard. But, I mean, we use our arms and our legs and do it for ourselves. And it's always better when you can do something for yourself. Because other people can always let you down. That's what counterparty risk is. Because when you buy these treasury bonds, when these people bought the Credit Suisse bonds from the bank bonds, they thought they had something good. And just overnight, Credit Suisse just messed them all up. There you go. Okay, U.S. dollar index 103.08 today, and it's going up. Yeah, but what's it being compared against? The euro. And you know what a mess the euro is? It's a hot mess. 60% of the dollar index, over 60% of the dollar index compared against the euro. And it's a basket of other currencies. We're all a mess too, like the Swiss franc, Canadian dollar, Japanese yen, so on. Okay, guys. The whole world right now is a hot mess. But we're right on the edge, and it's going to get a whole lot worse. And as the people get more frightened because the system is getting a whole lot worse, then the system is going to get a whole lot worse because the people are going to react. Don't get angry at the messenger. I'm just telling you guys what's going to happen here. Is the people are going to get more and more agitated as things collapse, and that's going to make more and more people agitated. We'll catch you guys in the next show, and you guys have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.